Good afternoon, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving to my American friends. I know that was yesterday, but maybe you still got the day off and are recovering, that type of thing. There's so much chatter and talk, especially as we get closer to the new year, about popular diets. I feel somewhat protected from it at times because I don't like hang out on TikTok and hear all these things, especially fad diets and trends and that type of stuff. But I know what goes on out there, especially some of the deeper trenches of the internet, Pinterest and those type of things. There's so many diets out there. And maybe refreshingly, you're going to hear from me talk today about the pros and cons of them, because there are pros and cons. Anyone that tells you that one single-handed thing is the only answer and has no drawbacks really isn't looking at things critically, because especially even things that are like quote unquote right and true and what I feel are superior, they still have drawbacks. Today, I'm going to rank the most popular diets out there, talk about the pros and cons, have an open discussion about this stuff because it's really important. Ideally, this helps you as the viewer decide what's right for you or add a little bit more context, and helps you, select things for your clients and push them in the right direction. So let's dive into things here. One thing I do want to mention too, and I'll link this up. If you're interested in starting nutrition coaching, you haven't got started yet, I have a completely free 3-day challenge. Will give you everything you need to get that going and get that started. I'm going to link it up here in the first link in the chat as we get going. If you're popping in, say hi, tell me where you're from. If you have any questions specifically about diets, let me know and we'll go from there. If you're watching the replay, chime in the comments below and I'll get back to them. I love to hear from you guys. The one thing I'm seeing is check. Yeah, my mic is going. I thought maybe it wasn't there for a second, but we're good. We're all good. But if you're looking to get started nutrition coaching, check out that challenge. It's amazing. Gives you everything you need to get started in just 3 days. Really, really useful stuff. Let's dive into my list here. And I did make a list. I've talked about this before in different places, but I want to add a little bit of commentary to it because I think it's important. Let's go from worst to best, shall we? We'll start with what I feel are maybe some of the uglier diets. Start with number 5, the carnivore diet. Have you heard of this diet? People eating exclusively animal-based products and no fruits or vegetables. If you would have asked me, I don't know, 10 years ago, if we could agree unanimously on one thing within the world of nutrition, I would have said for the most part, I thought people thought you should eat fruits and vegetables. I thought we all agreed on that, especially vegetables. I thought they were kind of off limits. But in the last 2 or 3 years, we're seeing, a push of people for health reasons, medical reasons, for just, even general health, avoiding fruits and vegetables and eating only animal-based products to improve their health. I want to start this by saying I am by no means anti-meat. I've consumed at least 200 grams of protein coming mainly from animal products for the last 20 straight years. That's honest and truthful. I think I talk about the importance of protein all the time, but that doesn't mean I'm also at the same time very anti-plant. You should include plant-based foods. They're some of the best things for your overall health in terms of the nutrients. And this is like consistently shown within the scientific literature to help things. Now, if you're one of those people who you're like, you just don't tolerate them well, without doubt, pick your battles. Like avoid certain ones, load up on ones that you do feel good on. And if you need a change and you feel like this is the right answer for you, then by all means go for it. But in my case, eating less processed foods overall, including meat, including animal products, but also including fruits and vegetables and some whole grains within calorie control that's going to, fall in line with your goals and requirements is the smartest thing you can do. Okay, a few, potential benefits of the carnivore diet, though. You're eating so much protein that in most cases, people will be in a calorie deficit just because the level of satiation. And through that, you can improve some health markers because of, weight loss. When we lose weight, specifically body fat, generally health improves. And that comes down to, our blood markers and that type of stuff. You might feel as if you have more energy as well. that's definitely something that like I read through the comments on some of my videos and that type of stuff. And, people do report that. They also, crazy enough, and I find this surprising, say there's no changes in their bowel movements. Obviously, you're not eating any fruits, vegetables, plant-based foods. Fiber is going to be impacted. Ironically enough, we talk so much about storing glycogen or carbs as glycogen in muscle. When you eat just meat, by the time you consume the meat, although it's, muscle meat and should contain carbs, it has none in it because it's all been fermented already. It's like lactic acid gone, interestingly enough. Always when it's kind of someone is chest thumping and saying, I don't eat the foods I don't eat the foods my food eats, kind of, those type of people. Those are the first people I was introduced to with kind of a more carnivore style of eating. I was always kind of like, oh, I don't know, man. It's kind of crazy because muscle contains carbs. Not when you eat it though, by that point. But people, say there's quite a bit of health benefits. We got to keep in mind that the pros of this, there's a lot more protein and it can be satiating. People will stay full for longer and control their calories. The cons, there is a real lack of like health promoting foods, diversity in the nutrients, those type of things, an impact, on cholesterol, especially if weight gain occurs, which can still happen even though you're eating satiating foods. If that happens, which can definitely happen if someone's saying like, I'm going to eat, as much butter, eggs, and steak as I can. It is possible. It's less likely, but it is possible. Can impact your cholesterol levels. And a lot of these people just don't feel like that is even something that's concerning. So keep all this stuff in mind. But that's number 5, the carnivore diet. At number 4, we have the ketogenic diet. So similar in terms of a higher fat approach, but within the ketogenic diet, sometimes we include like starchy vegetables, leafy greens, those type of things. Generally, it's very low carb and high fat, somewhat moderate protein. The goal of the ketogenic diet is to get into ketosis, and sometimes eating some amino acids can send you out of ketosis. So sometimes it's on like the moderate level of protein. Potential benefits: weight loss, blood sugar control, given the fact that there's an impact on your body composition, as well as you're not eating as much foods that could spike your carbohydrate and or blood sugar levels like carbohydrates. Keep in mind though, that like amino acids can have an impact on your blood sugar levels as well. Like it's one of those things. Originally this was intended for epileptic treatment, but people have been now consuming it for a longer period of time. And the pros of the ketogenic diet is that there is an emphasis on like minimally processed foods and still includes vegetables, but generally like some populations, like I personally, even if there's an argument to be made around like acclimating to lower levels of carbs for performance athletes and stuff, generally it's just not advisable. Athletes need carbs. It's not a great performance enhancing diet. Diabetics that like are going super low carb, it's one of those things. If you go into metabolic acidosis, it can be damaging because of ketosis. No one really needs to be in ketosis for optimal health. I'd include more carbs. I really, really would. And this is coming from someone that like also 20 years ago, I would have erred on the side of being like a low carb advocate. I really did think that you needed to keep them low to improve your body fat levels. I think a lot of people did. I'm not trying to say I'm not guilty of it, because I definitely was. But I would definitely, through time, have learned that additional carbs for performance, for recovery, for feeling good energy levels overall were something that was super smart for me. If you got any questions as we go through this, guys, by all means, jump in, drop it in the comments. Number 3, intermittent fasting. So less about excluding certain things, less about black and white, and more about controlling feeding windows. There's a bunch of different ways of doing intermittent fasting, but generally you're not eating for as long. Probably one of the more popular approaches to intermittent fasting is that 16-hour fast, 8-hour fasting window, the lean gains approach. I think what intermittent fasting did was take away the emphasis on meal timing and look a little bit more at like overall food totals, just in a more limited, level of food. I think we were like back in the low carb days, we were definitely also pushed the message that more frequent feedings was better. And that's not necessarily the case. The intent was you eat more, you increase your metabolism because there's an increase in your metabolism every time you eat due to the thermic effect of food, get more nutrients, that kind of stuff. When we match these things over calories and macronutrients and space out the meals and less frequent meals, just larger meals, there's no real difference on metabolism. So we don't necessarily need to be eating that. Probably pros of this approach, though, is like there's no emphasis on like good or bad foods. You're just controlling for calories through a different method. Some proponents will say that like, there's anti-aging effects that could be just due to the calorie restriction, that type of thing, but that can be helpful as well. I think in terms of cons, it's one of those things where if you're used to eating like breakfast or a late meal, and like for the most part, that's something that's normal to you, the transition to doing fasting can be tough, can be difficult, include some hunger, irritability, that type of stuff. Generally, most people that are looking to gain muscle and push a calorie surplus, they just find it hard to eat enough food because the limited food window. But if you're someone that like wants to lose weight, doesn't like eating breakfast, likes larger meals, then intermittent fasting is a good thing to try. Number 2 on our list, as we work down, we're going from worst to best. You'll remember that we detailed the carnivore diet here, ketogenic diet, just did intermittent fasting, which is a little bit of a deviation from food types, nutrients, good or bad typing, less rules based. The only rule would be the feeding window, that type of thing. Number 2, we have the Mediterranean diet. So eating, foods that are found around the Mediterranean Sea, fruits, vegetables, fish, seafood, poultry, wine, less emphasis on meat and processed foods. What's probably good about this is those foods and eating more of those foods have a wide range of nutrients that have all been shown to, disease or decrease disease risk, control inflammation, that type of stuff. There's less black and white thinking around good or bad. Just like a less emphasis on certain things, which for most people, looking to improve their health, that's the type of middle ground approach that works best. There's really no reason why you can't consume red meat, though. I think the biggest thing is, if I think back on like why red meat gets demonized at times, is that, like, you're not just eating, like, people just aren't eating just red meat. They're eating the burger bun, the cheese, the bacon on it, the French fries, tons of like hyper palatable, high calorie foods. So in combination, like red meat, a lot of times, although it is high in saturated fat, gets lumped in with all of the rest of that stuff. Red meat in isolation isn't bad. There's no reason why you can't eat it. As well as a Mediterranean diet, like since you're eating less processed foods overall, like you will have a high level of like food volume, low calorie density, right? These foods are filling, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't stay away from the objective aspects of nutrition that control our body composition and influence it, right? It doesn't mean that it's just like completely off limits, because you still can gain weight and body fat and push towards an unhealthy weight doing those things. What I probably would do is eat mostly a Mediterranean diet and then go with our number 1 choice overall, which is going to be flexible dieting and a more objective based approach to nutrition, getting closer to the checks and balances and your requirements as an individual and your goals and your preferences, and setting some targets based on that and filling those targets with less processed food choices and a variety of foods. Nothing's, good or bad. Nothing's off limits, that type of thing. That helps you, base your foods on, personal preference and compromise. In my experience, that is helpful for your overall health. Probably some cons, though. You can still work in ultra processed foods, and there's a dependence on the objective side of nutrition versus listening to your body and hunger signals and those type of things. Definitely recommend that one, though. But that's our list. Those are the top 5 diets right now that I'm seeing and hearing about it, ranked from worst to best. If you guys are listening to the replay and you have any thoughts on this, by all means, drop it in the comments below, and we'll chat a little bit further and discuss. There's no good or bad. There's just pros and cons of this stuff. And if you're one of those individuals that has seen a lot of success on one of those diets that I, claimed was bad, I think kudos to you. You're improving your health. I'm by no means a nutrition slasher. I think you should go for it. And I think if you're finding success with it and it's the thing that's worked for you and is sustainable in your own capacity, then keep doing it. I'm not going to be the person that tells you to stop that. If you're looking to get into nutrition coaching though, click on that quick start challenge, 3 days, give you everything you need to get started. Make sure to like the video. And if you're here for the first time, subscribe, guys. If you have any questions or comments, by all means, drop them in the chat or the comment box and we'll go from there. I'm going to leave it there for today. Thanks for tuning in to another Office Hours. Take care, guys. Have a good weekend.